It's Tuesday, and if you are a basketball lover, a women's basketball lover in particular, then you know what that means. It means it's time for Certified Unscripted. Hello, everybody. I'm Vera Jones. I am your host of Certified Unscripted. And every week, I always say this, we have so much going on. It's ridiculous how much is going on in the sports world. And we're always, before we actually come on, we're all talking over each other like, oh no, and did you see it? So by the time we get here, literally we're exploding to be able to give all the information we can to you just based on what's going on in the sports world. You are in luck because we always have a panel of power experts, including the GM. Penny Toler spent 23 years with the Sparks organization as a player and a GM and executive. Vice president, and now she's been in coach. You did some of everything. You did mop the floor. She did all of it. Popcorn. I know you did the popcorn because you always eat it off script.
I know.
Oh boy. So yeah, Penny Toler is with us from the WNBA, and who literally, when you want to talk about dedication, commitment, none other than Teresa Weatherspoon, a legend in her own right, New York Liberty. She's driving. Do not get into an accident tonight. We missed you last week. We really missed you.
I'm in here.
You are.
So I had to bring the spoon for Mighty Ruthie. I had to bring the spoon for Mighty Ruthie today. So here we go.
All right, representing 30 seconds before air. Boom, I made it. So I'm glad that you joined us. We got a lot going on. We actually have a special guest that we want you to stick around. Oh, there's your Penny and Spoon. I don't have anything. I don't have nothing. There's nothing for Vera. Nothing. Sweet V. They used to call me Sweet V for the top of the key.
Okay.
That's got to be worth something. No?
I got my mic, girl. I got my mic, girl.
Okay, the mic's for me. All right, I'll take it.
Baby.
So I'm going to jump in. We're already getting our comments. First of all, I never want to not say this. Thank you to all of our loyal listeners and followers on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. You can join us every single Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. on Facebook or YouTube Live. Also, if you want to go back and see what we said about past episodes, please do not forget we do have a website, certifiedunscripted.com, and you can also check out the Certified Unscripted YouTube page as well and find whatever you need to find. All right. And then, of course, I'm Vera Jones. You can always find a whole bunch of stuff wherever I am. So before we get into anything, since I have the mic, I'm going to jump right into what's on my mind, and it's my alma mater, Syracuse. So I'm not knocking Coach Q. I'm not. However, we touched on this, I think, in episode 3. We talked about what was going on with Coach Quentin and the Syracuse University. We talked early on about how 12 players bounced into the transfer portal. They were done. We talked about how there were allegations that were out there, and then how it took a little bit of time. There was full support from the administration. John Wildhack, the AD, had said that, it fully support the values of the program, et cetera, in the beginning. Then, of course, The Athletic came out with this article that just blew up the sports world, that all of this was going on behind the scenes over a period of like a decade. That there had been, I want to say since 2018, 20 different players had left the program, 12 just this season. And so, of course, this, at least in my world, with Syracuse, being a Syracuse alum, that's all we talk about. And so now we see, fast forward, that there was a resignation in place. So I'm going to start with just asking someone that is in administration. Penny, your background as a GM, when is it time, because one of the questions that's out there now is, did John Wildhack wait too late to do something to make this call to say, hey, you're probably going to have to resign or you're going to have to get fired? We don't know exactly what words were out there because the media only can print what it hears, which is, well, we came to an agreement, but you and I know it was basically, you got to go, right? And they're giving him the option to probably just say, hey, and bow out gracefully. But how do you know as a GM or anybody in that administrative level that has to make these tough decisions, when it's time to say, like, the coach has got to go? It's time to listen to the players. what is that dynamic for you as an administrative executive?
Well, I think like I say, you never know because you're not there. Let me go on the record and say that first. You know what I'm saying? I think the red flag is because, you have people leaving, but I think, which, is a big red flag when the whole team leaves, so I think that was the thing. If you have a couple of players leaving, you see players leave Connecticut, you see players leave a place and they say good riddance. But I think the red flag is when the whole team's leaving. I think this is in my lifetime. I don't know about y'all's. I've never seen a whole team leave, like out the door. So obviously with a whole team leaving, that's a huge red flag. And then it's one of those things where looking at the timetable, which like you say, us at the beginning talking over each other because there's so much to talk about. I would assume, I don't know, that they did their homework because this didn't happen overnight. I think this was going like we heard it 5 months. We heard it right when they were eliminated from the playoffs. At least I did, from the NCAA. Right when they eliminated, you had 2-3 players leave. Then I think 3-4 more left. I think it's one of those situations where, in this case right here, or this incident with everybody leaving, I'm sure there were red flags before. Did anybody jump in to say anything? Right. This is a tough one because, like I said, the whole team leaving. So obviously, it's something there. I believe it looked like, but I take my hat off to the university. It looked like at least they investigated it and they came to whatever conclusion they wanted to come to. Because, like I said, it's a difference. It's even a difference if 5 people leave, but all of them. Being a GM, it's a little different in the pros where. We kind of get rid of you. People do leave sometime, but from LA, I was usually having to trade them or something like that. But it's definitely a red flag, and I'm sure it's more to follow. What's true, what's not. Well, what's true is all 12 players left, so that's a problem. What's not true, we'll never know because, being what it is right now, everybody's about to weigh on it, whether it's true or not. But at the end of the day, I think the university probably did what we expect. I guess what the university said, when all the players leave, they got to have some type of program if they want to have a girls team. So maybe they saw fit that, hey, maybe you should resign, or maybe he resigned. I have no idea.
So I got a question, Spoon. I'm going to bring you into this. So as a coach, how do you miss it? Maybe this blows my mind because
that's
my certification is in conflict resolution. There's got to be a place where you go, I'm losing my team. They're slipping away. I'm not reaching some or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, how does that even happen in your estimation as a coach? How do you miss that I'm losing my whole team?
You don't miss it. You try to fix it.
Yeah.
You try to fix it. You don't miss it. You try to fix it. You notice when the response isn't the same.
Yeah.
You notice when the buy-in just isn't there. You recognize it, but you try to fix it, and trying to fix it can sometimes be too late. It can be too late. You don't miss it. You can feel it. It's a feeling. You can see it. It's noticeable, and you're just trying to fix it. But that's hard to fix when it gets to that point. Now, the question was asked earlier did the university take too long? Well, we can't say that because what the university did is due diligence. They made sure that they investigated it. When you looked and you saw 12 kids gone, like Penny said, that's a huge flag. So you have to investigate. You have to listen. But you can't dismiss another side. You got to hear both sides and then do the investigation properly. And I think that's what they did. They listened to both sides, and then they did the proper investigation and came to their conclusion. And you see what their conclusion was. And you're right. It's not that, hey, you need to resign. No, it is you're going to resign or we're going to fire you. Yeah. It is plain and simple. And that's the way it's laid out. I mean, I'm a coach who's been released from a university as well. And I can tell you just how it was laid out for me. And it was laid out rough and harshly. And you have to make a decision. But I've never quit on anything that I knew I gave my life to and my everything to. So I was not going to resign when I knew that, that wasn't going to happen to me. I wasn't resigning. I wasn't going to give up on those kids. You're just going to have to make the decision that you have to make. And that's what they did.
Somebody made an interesting comment. One of our viewers made an interesting comment about the mental health aspect of just how much control a lot of times players are coming in and they're giving you their life, their belief, their buy-in, their everything. And sometimes it gets missed. Coaches miss just how much mentally their players, that, yeah, you want to groom them physically, but you have a responsibility for that mental piece as well. And with everything that's going on with mental health, are we missing, we in general, our coaches and people in general, missing the ball in terms of mental health and considering just how important that aspect of the game is?
Now you're correct on that, but the thing is this: if there is a relationship with player and coach, you won't miss when that kid is having an issue. You won't miss it because you know what makes that kid go. You know how to make him go. But when there's something that's really bugging that kid and that kid is not coming along, even when you're trying to bring him, you know that there's an issue, and you have to have a sit down with that kid, and you have to listen. You have to understand their truth. You have to understand that truth, and you don't try to push them past where they feel like they just can't go. Sometimes it's not all about them saying, I can't do it. It's mental. That's a mental block that's causing the issue. So how do we fix it? We sit down and we have a conversation with that kid, and we move in the direction that's necessary for that kid, not what's necessary for the university, or for you, or for your W's and your L's. It's about that kid and the well-being of that kid. It has to be important, but you can't do it if you don't have the relationship.
Yeah, no, I think
relationship. While we're talking about that, and I'm just playing devil's advocate. Look, you guys, I'm not on anybody's side. I'm just hearing what I hear from a lot of coaches is a lot of coaches are afraid to have that conversation sometime now, because every coach that I hear at the college level, when I was a GM, they're like, and I hate to say it, I even kind of feel like that myself now. Hey, we're gonna leave the door open or bring 3 people in, and then maybe people won't talk because there's another side. I'm not talking about quitting. I'm not talking about just him. I'm talking about other programs, other good programs that I heard coaches are saying, like, you can't say nothing to players, and I'm not talking about quitting. That's different. I want to state that's different. All 12 players left, so we already know there's a problem there. But we're talking about when it's a couple where coaches are like, yeah, as soon as we try to sit them down, or if there's a disagreement, they run to the athletic director. You know what I'm saying? So there's another situation, or say if a player's not even playing, because when it comes to mental health, I think it can go both ways. Because if you take a Joanne, what's her last name, McCue? Yeah, how she talks about her mental aspect of it. I just think this world right now, I really think that it needs to be some new guidelines. And I agree with everything you're saying about having a relationship with the player, because you definitely should see it before 12 players get up out of there. But then there's some players that, you're not going to have a relationship with them, because let's just do the flip side. And I want to go on the record and say, because I actually like this player, I was super, super excited that when she came in the W, she was in shape and ready to go. And that's Destiny Slocum, who I think will play very, very well for Bill. But what do you do when you have a player to transfer 4 times in 4 years?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Remember, she played for 4 different universities.
Maryland. Yeah, right.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Like the flip side. So I'm not saying Q. I'm just talking about in general, where I'm hearing a lot that is coaches are scared too, because they lose their jobs, they lose their livelihood.
Yeah.
It's quick to go that route, and this is why I say I'm hoping. Well, I'm sure Syracuse did, because it took a long time before this came about. But what do you do on that side? Because I'm sure you guys are hearing the coaches are scared to say stuff to people.
And Penny, that's a great point. I think you bring up a valid point. But what I've learned in these cases is when you do have those sit downs, that sit down cannot be just you and that player alone behind those closed doors. You have to bring in the administrators at that point to sit down with you to have that conversation, because sometimes it can be a little bit tough, and you don't want it to get back to the administrators incorrectly. So you want to have that sit down, make sure you're not behind those doors by yourself. Those administrators are part of that conversation.
Right.
Another thing that I have learned as well is when you can't connect to the player, you can probably connect to so many of them, but when you can't connect to some, that's when your staff has to come in. Some of your staff members can connect to a player just a tad bit better than you can. And you have to accept that. It just is where it is. But how do you connect to a staff? You got to be able to put a staff together that can connect to players as well. It's all about the relationships and how we deal with what these players are going through. And when it comes to being able to have that sit down, that uncomfortable sit down, sometimes you have to have the administrators involved, because you don't want to lose your job. You want to make sure that you presented yourself in the correct way, and the words were said in the right way. So if you have them present, they hear it. So two sides can't be. It can't be. It's going to be they heard both sides at that one particular moment.
I think they're going to have to move towards, I mean, the more and more, particularly everything that has come out with Simone Biles and, et cetera. You can go on and on about, where we are in this mental health piece, Sha'Carri Richardson, all of it.
Yeah.
I think on staff, one of the things I wouldn't be surprised if, particularly in college, at the college level, I don't know what's going to happen professionally, that there is a mental health counselor or a psychologist or someone that is a regular part of the staff. Like that. You go from director of basketball operations and now they're a video coordinator. Well, now there's also going to be someone on staff that's that counseling piece, because a lot of coaches, this is what I've seen in dealing with coaches in terms of team building. Oh my God, look who's popping in from Tokyo. Commitment. But what a lot of what I've seen is this mask. I don't know what to do. You tired of the mask?
You stay safe. Keep that mask on.
Yeah, put it back up.
I'm stubborn.
All right.
You already know
that. I can barely hear you too. So pull that little mic piece closer to your mouth.
How y'all doing?
We're good.
Peace.
We're good. We're good.
How you doing, General Manager? GM?
I'm doing good. See, I didn't know if you were coming on, so I covered you. I covered you today. I said, for Mighty Ruthie, I got this spoon.
Well, hey, we were just trying to keep you in there, so I guess I was doing it too. So, you know what I'm saying? We about that. Well, let me get it in view. I don't even know how the hell to get it in view.
We started the show with this.
I'm dyslexic today, boy.
Back to the show. So we're talking
Unscripted.
Just to put Unscripted. Back to the show. So we're talking about mental health, and we were talking about a lot that's going on. We started off, Ruthie, just to bring you up to speed. We were talking about Syracuse, my alma mater, again being in the news. We talked about all 12 players left. Now, Coach Quentin Hillsman has now resigned his position. And where I was actually going with this is all of these types of things in the news becoming so prevalent. I would not be surprised if one of the solutions is maybe we have to have someone on staff for mental wellness or some type of program. There's got to be a place where players feel that they can go that's safe, because apparently, particularly at this university, they did not necessarily feel safe, or they didn't feel that their concerns that were brought, and the Athletics most recent article has brought to the forefront that many of these players have brought their concerns to administration. Some of that administration was prior to when John Wildhack got there, but there were other people that they brought their concerns to and they were overlooked. So that's a whole nother element for a whole nother show. So hopefully, we'll be able to follow this a little more closely and find out what's going on. But the next question is, who gets the nod? So I'm the big nod for that position is my college teammate and roommate and Felicia Leggett Jack, who is at University of Buffalo currently. Another name that I saw that was thrown in the mix that you all will recognize is Tammy Reid, former WNBA player, now at Rhode Island, but she coached under Quentin Hillsman as an assistant for many years. Penny, I'm going back to you. Do you go, I don't know, because there might be some carryover there because of that relationship, and you want to just steer clear and go brand new, or does that matter at all?
Well, I think he do what's best. Like that comes down to only the organization know what's happening there, and what I mean by that, because you know how like on the outside it can look like one thing and be something different. I always say go for the best person to do the job. But if they want a clean house, and they don't want any leftovers, then of course they wouldn't hire somebody from that's been in the past. In the WNBA they recycle all the time. They recycle all the time. But it depends on the university. If they want to go in a totally different direction, they can. But at the same time, if a person like a Tammy Reid, so let's even throw Delisha Milton-Jones, I'm sure she's probably happy at Old Dominion, but I know she also coached up under Quentin, who's a great player coach, that I'm familiar with. But if I wouldn't punish them if I thought they were the best person for the job. You know, it's one of those situations where I think I would look at each individual as they come to the table.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I can say this, even, you know, I took a lot of heat when, you know, I hired Derek and people thought that I should have hired somebody that was in the WNBA or whatever. And people don't understand that a GM has a lot of power, but we're not the only person making the decision. But even
Mm-hmm.
before I hired him, what I did was I let all the players, hey, look, he called every player. And after he talked to every player, I talked to every player. You guys cool? This is who you want? Okay, let's hire him then. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So is that so? And I know in college you're not going to do that, but in the pros you kind of can do that because you want your players to want to play
Yeah.
for somebody who they want to play for. So that's why I say the people on the outside didn't know what steps that I took, and when I said, "Oh, he was the only candidate," people felt like I meant, "Oh, that's the only candidate that I interviewed." No, he wasn't the only candidate that I interviewed. You know what I'm saying? But the point was he was high on the list. There were some other candidates. I let him talk to the players. The players wanted him. Okay, my stars wanted him. Let's face it, you have stars. Okay, let's hire him. He's good, and I like him because he came from a championship pedigree. You know, so
Yeah.
that's why I say it's different when you're on the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm looking at I'm looking at Ruthie and that mask, and my mind shifted gears 100% because I'm in Florida. And Florida and Texas are battling. You talk about the Olympics. We
Yes.
have our own COVID Olympics. We battling to
You
see who's
said
going to
COVID
be
Olympics.
number one in the worst cases out there. It's ridiculous. To me, it's just simple. It's just simple unselfishness. I understand that everybody has a liberty to, I don't want to wear a mask. I get that. But when you start, it's almost like the whole cigarette thing. I got a right to smoke a cigarette. I'm outside. Yeah, but when your secondhand smoke is killing everybody,
Yeah.
and what
True. True.
eventually happened, we ended up outlawing, right, the cigarettes in public places. Well, it's along the same lines. It's not that you don't have a right to not wear a mask. It's just that the fact it's been now scientifically proven that this is the only way that we can stop, or not the only way, one of the best ways to stop the spread of this virus. So now we're getting ready to go backwards. So Ruthie, you put that daggone mask on, but I want to ask you, how much is this now affecting sport? Like we grazed on this before. Should we be playing in the Olympics? Should we be participating? What are your thoughts now that we've racked up quite a few gold medals and we've been winning and everybody's safe?
Give me a second.
Are we still, you know what I mean? It's the back
You
and
know,
forth. Are we doing
hold
the
on.
right thing by
I think
continuing to
so.
participate?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
You know what? Being here at the Olympic Village, walking, seeing thousands of athletes, I think they did a really good job wearing their masks. The people here don't play the radio. It was, to me, any second you didn't have your mask on, they made you put it on. You had to wash your hand every 5 seconds. It was a 10. They did an excellent job. I mean, excellent job on making sure we were safe, making sure that. But I don't know. I think there might have been still some cases, but where we were, you couldn't even go into any buildings. You couldn't in the elevators. So they did a really good job. And to me, it was just such a beautiful atmosphere to see the athletes. So I'm sort of glad they did it because it's like these athletes wait for years and years to train, and they want to go and display their talent. So I think the way they did it is that they were very intentional about being safe. So no, I think it was great. I'm happy for the athletes, and like I said, the atmosphere was it was beautiful.
Good. But now we see that how strenuous it was at the Olympics and how much, no fans, no this,
Yes.
they mandated everything. Do we need to do that here? Is that going to, as these cases, especially with the Delta variant, continue to rise, are we going to end up is the WNBA, for instance, or even the NCAA, well, NCAA can't do it, but the WNBA, are they going to follow suit with the NFL and start fining people? If you don't get the vaccine? I mean, how serious do we need to start taking this whole thing, this pandemic that won't go away?
Well, you know what? Well, we had to get the vaccine here, but I'm not sure. It's sort of a sticky topic. Some people are right where they don't want to get vaccine for whatever reason. I don't know how many studies been done saying. I guess they're saying that more people that if you're not vaccinated, if you get it, you got more repercussions. So I don't know. It's sort of a sticky topic because some people, I got friends that are nurses that just say, I would lose my job before I get vaccinated. And you got people that saying, I don't know how people won't take it. So I think it's a personal thing. But I think when it comes to athletes, I think to me, it's I think that they really need to. I would say just make sure people wearing their mask and make sure because they did an excellent job here. And I know that would take more manpower because listen, Japanese had like 10 people at once stop. Like they was very serious about it. Very serious. Somebody probably come up to me in a minute, like, get your mask on, whatever.
Penny,
and I wonder too, I was about to ask Spoon, because you look at the Delta version of COVID picking up here now, like in Los Angeles, they have, when you go in a restaurant, you have to prove that you are vaccinated, which we already know that's going to create another problem, because there are going to be people with fake cards that are saying they're vaccinated when they're not, that could be spreading it, just as well as someone that is vaccinated. It's going to be interesting because is the WNBA going to make it through the season? And I wonder if that's the case. I also wonder about the NBA, because it's a little further down the line where the WNBA can, it's right there, it may skate through. But what's going to happen to the NBA? Because it seems like every time I turn on the news, the cases are like through the roof. And in California right now, and California don't play, I can tell you that. They're about to go to my building that I live in. When I step out of my condo here, I have to have a mask on. And if I don't, the guards see me downstairs. They be like, "Hey, Penny, we gotta ask you to put your mask on," But I'm wondering, it's scary because forget the sports teams, are we as a people about to go back in?
Yeah, I absolutely think it is. I don't know. You're in the NBA, Spoon. What do you think is going to happen there? You think they're going to follow the NFL and mandate or other vaccines?
I'm not quite sure of what will happen. I'm with Ruthie on that. It's a really sticky situation where, people have their own reasons of why they do it and why they don't do it. But I think we've done a heck of a job of keeping everybody safe. But I think what's going to happen for us is, because right now we're back to the mask. When we go to the summer league, we have to have the mask on. I think that summer league is going to tell the story of how things are going to have to go, have to be played out, because the variant is crazy, and in Vegas as well. So it's going to give them an opportunity to decide how we're going to have to do this thing, because it is running rampant again, probably more so than the first time.
Well, are you in Vegas right now?
We'll be in Vegas tomorrow. We leave tomorrow.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I was just wondering, are they letting fans into the summer league too? I was wondering about that.
As of right now, yes. As of right now, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, all of this is, I don't know about y'all, but I'm over it. I'm so over the pandemic. And I know that a lot of the mental health piece that we're seeing now, I'm sure that sociologists are going to come back and they're going to tell us that the COVID pandemic played a heightened level of factoring into just why so many people have been struggling with this. As it pertains to sports, however, what are we going to do about it? Well, we've got a guest that's coming up. We're going to be talking to Coach D on the flip side of this. You'll find out about what she has taken upon herself to start doing to get people in the better space in the mental health space. So stay tuned for that. Per usual, we got to pay our one little bill. We just got one bill and we got to pay it. We'll be right back.
In today's busy, fast-paced world, you need hydration that can go the distance with you. Face it, most sports drinks are more like soda. Many contain tons of sugar, artificial flavoring, artificial colors, and artificial ingredients, sometimes leaving you feeling sluggish, nauseous, and bloated. Well, there's a new sports drink in town, and she's got game. Introducing Electra, supernatural hydration for everyday doers, hustlers, and athletes.
All right, so thanks for joining us again. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube Live, continue to tell a friend to join us. We're here every Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. I'm Vera Jones, and of course, we have a power panel of experts in women's hoops and sports. And tonight we have a special guest, kind of an impromptu special guest that came on. We've been talking so much about this mental health piece, and as we continue to go on with the show, thank you for your questions. Trisha, you've got a lot of good comments there. I really appreciate reading those. As we move forward of what we want to do or how we can start stimulating ideas to make a difference in this space, because it is affecting sports. It's affecting people left and right. And it definitely is going to take its toll on the sports world, as we've already seen from what has happened with the Olympics. But there's a woman that goes by the name of Coach D. Williams. She's out of Brooklyn, and she's joining us today. And she's got a program that's called Get Fit, Fly Right. So Coach D, welcome to the show. Definitely want to hear a little bit about what you're doing and why you're doing it. So I'll just throw it out at you like that.
Many, many blessings. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hear you great.
Awesome. So my name is Coach D of Get Fit, Fly Right. And what I'm basically doing is working on a mission. My mission is to change the way that we approach mental health in sports. And I've been on this mission since 2016. In 2015, I was introduced to the mental health first aid course, and I took it for youth. And then I was like, wow, I need this for me. I experienced panic attacks and anxiety attacks at that time. And so I was like, I really want to be a better coach and a better person. And so I then became a mental health first aid instructor. That for me was a big step, because I was like, I've been to a lot of trainings, a lot of clinics, and we didn't have this type of training for us as coaches. Earlier I heard someone say, I believe it was Penny, playing devil's advocate, like the coaches don't want to have this conversation. And I've been in many conversations with coaches, and many don't feel equipped to have the mental health or the very emotionally charged conversations. And for me as a coach, it was very interesting how I was met with all the ways to get out of an out of bounds play or a sticky defensive situation, but I wasn't met with any information on how to take care of myself and be a better person for my athletes. And so after that, 100 Coaches Certified was born. Because of the pandemic, I had to stop. That goal was getting 100 coaches certified in mental health first aid. My biggest goal is to really normalize it. How can we normalize mental wellness and hygiene? And so I've coined the phrase, mental toughness is not mental health. And the reason is I've been a basketball coach for 15 years. I've had 3 knee surgeries. And so I've understood both sides of like wanting to play and can't, being a coach and not being there for my team, losing, my sense of identity, being depressed, having to transform my body physically as well as transform it mentally. And so for me, it was like, how can I get coaches this information for themselves? I personally believe that attitude is a reflection of leadership. What we are seeing is just a mirror of what's in us that we may not want to admit, really see, really understand. And I think for a lot of coaches, Spoon touched on it, it's the relationship. And I think a lot of coaches have great relationships with their kids and their athletes. It's the relationship with themselves. You touched on it, Penny, with the pressure of winning. The pressure of winning. Kobe talked a lot about self-awareness being key. And so that's what Get Fit, Fly Right is about. Although we weren't able to reinstate 100 Coaches Certified, we took it a step further. We're in a digital age. Mental health awareness training petition. My goal is to get 10,000 signatures, mandating, at least within the tri-states, starting that high school coaches are mandated to take mental health awareness training at some formal level. And the reason being is we're required to take concussion, CPR, first aid, even sexual harassment. These are all physical trainings. Nothing about the mental or social emotional. And so coaches need to be trained in that. I had a very good talk with a close friend who let me know that there is a clinician on staff on every NBA team. But most guys aren't comfortable with talking to, let me just say it, someone who is culturally not synchronistic, someone who doesn't come from their experience, who spent maybe 8 years in school. And so that school experience is very different than a lived one, or one that's in the streets, if you will. Yeah. And so, there's a trust factor. When we're talking mental health, mental hygiene, we're talking about trust, and safety. Mental health, the reason why it gets missed a lot is because health is the state of. And, excuse my language, but most people don't hit it until the crap hits the fan, which is even a mistake within our physical health. But because we have, other things in our body that allow us to persevere, those same strongholds, the pandemic proved that they're false. And so the pandemic did a great thing in really materializing the things that many people hide on the daily.
Yes. Coach D, you killing it. Coach D,
I'm like this.
I'm just girl. If I had a team, you'll be on the staff, okay? So hey, everything you're saying is just so on point. And when you said the part about, like you say, you have concussion, sexual harassment, what was the other one? And you're
CPR,
right.
first aid.
That's
so
right.
I can help your heart. I can help your cut. I can help your head if you feel dizzy, but I can't help your heart and your mind if you're hurt.
Right.
Exactly. And that's why I used to always say, and one of the things I realized, like a couple of years into being a GM, how we used to say as players, hey man, we don't want to hear that, because when you step between them lines, it got to be all ball. That's not true. I found, when I thought I was a GM and I started watching behavior and studying, I think, oh no, you're the same person when you get out there. It's just a matter of what pressure is going to bring it out. And the pressure that we face now, even though people won't admit to it, is COVID. COVID making you take a good look at yourself. And then it's making people, because you inside, have to like yourself and all those things that you can suppress when you're doing something and constantly going. COVID shut it all down, and now these things are coming up. Coach D, hey, I'm gonna tell you, anybody out there that got a team, got an organization, y'all better get in Coach D. Coach D, you'll kill it. I'm loving what you're saying. It's like dead on point.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, that's the first step. The petition is the first step. I've been, so just a little bit about my background. I am a certified yoga teacher as well. I've been a basketball coach for 15 years. So having that dual language, I think, is super important. When we as coaches, again, mental toughness is not mental health. And a lot of coaches are under the misconception that being tough gets you through depression. It does not.
Yeah.
I was on staff.
Even for the coach?
This is blowing my mind. I was on staff, and one of our fellow coaches, there were several, which is why I ain't coaching no more, but that's another story for another day. But one of our coaches, one of our star player grandfather she was very, very close to her grandfather, and he passed away. And I just remember being in the team meeting and one of the coaches saying, well, she just need to suck that. I mean, he passed away the day before a game. And so she was, out of it at naturally, right? Had gotten the news. And, to me, this was basic, emotional intelligence 101. Of course, she's going to be out of it. And I just remember when you just said that whole thing about mental toughness, like, well, that's what's wrong with these kids. They're not mentally tough. Everybody's got somebody that dies. That's what you got to accept. And I was going, I was like, I don't belong here, because this is just not the way I think. This is not what makes sense to me. And that same staff, there was another time when there was a young woman that was on our team whose mom, was just her and her mom lived together. And her mom had unfortunately gone to jail, had been arrested for a DUI that night, right? And so there was no one home. And I know this sounds crazy, but naturally she was upset because her mom, the only person she was close to, right? They were very close, ended up in jail. And now there is nobody home to take the dog out for like 3 days. And like, there's nobody there. She's away at college. And I remember the coach saying, I'm going to kick her off the team because she's not going hard. I'm like, oh my God. We never took time to find out. Let's talk to her. So of course I talked to her and found out what was going on. And when I shared that with the coach was just like, that's what I'm saying, though. I mean, this is basketball. And what you said, what happens here between the lines, she's got to worry about that some other time. When she comes to practice, she's got to figure it out. And I'm just like, it doesn't work that way. Exactly. It never had. Kid ended up leaving the team. But what you're saying is so important. And I'm wondering how, Penny, come on, use that administrative thought process. How does someone like Coach D get this program acclimated, maybe even into the NCAA, right? To start this thing.
It's needed, and I think the world needs to recognize that. When you look at COVID, and then I think the other, as far as I'm concerned, the other robber of people's lives and robber of their sanity is social media. You know what I'm saying? That we haven't dealt with. I was going to ask Coach, for me, I can honestly tell you that I was already in the process, and luckily in college we have one that I think every staff should have, like what you said at the beginning, Vera, either some type of social worker, like I was going to get a sports psychiatrist because I felt that we fell short, and it wasn't our athletic ability as it was mental stuff where the focus couldn't stay on what it was on. I was actually about to thought. So I think we're at a time now that person is just as important as a coach and the players, that you have to have one on every staff. I think people need to add it into their budget, and not until Coach D really broke it down in those 4 phrases. It get overlooked because you think it's going to be covered in one of those categories. Like she said, mental toughness is not mental focus. But Coach D, I wanted to throw it back to you and be like, what for anybody out there listening to spread this word, what steps should a university or the pros, where I'm gonna tell you right now, where people are just really losing it, what are your first suggestions?
Right now, I think it's get the staff that they trust training. I think the immediate fix is, get someone who went to school for it. But the thing is, let's just be frank about this conversation. 80-something% of the WNBA and the NBA, they are Black people who historically have had a lot of issues with the way that clinical therapies have gone. And so we get to evaluate that, right? The lack of cultural competency as well as cultural synchronicity. And so we have to start there. Coaches, I bring it back on them. They themselves cannot be afraid to be that person. And really get that person, just like we learn in first aid or CPR, to that more qualified person once it becomes, a more diagnosable and now treatable situation. But the beautiful thing about the mind is that the mind is way more resilient than the body. In that it's the thing that controls the body. So often many people are taught to move body first, mind second. And that's where the mental health becomes now a state of disarray. Anxiety and depression are onsets of moods that weren't treated, processed, feelings or emotions that weren't treated, understood, or navigated healthily. And so what we're experiencing is people who are now dealing with trauma at a large scale in need of training. And I say training because it's not just for them, for someone else. That's what all those other trainings are. Training in the mental hygiene sphere is for you. With the Athlete Project, there's only 2 right now, formal training, awareness trainings for mental health. The Athlete Project, Get Fit, Fly Right, and the Mental Health First Aid. And the thing with the mental health first aid is that it's very good in laying a framework, kind of one size fit all. But then when you talk sports specifically, having that understanding that mental toughness is how we deal with mental health, and getting people to see the distinctions in a way that make them feel safe to then be on board, right? Because athletes, we still have our identities to maintain, our safeguards, we still have our personality to protect. And so with that being said, now having that dual language, I think coaches are the key and they are the answer. And so with the Athlete Project, it's about awareness, development, and then normalization of mental hygiene as a practice. And so now we're not sitting coaches in a clinic and giving them X's and O's. We're putting them through the project. They themselves have to be vulnerable with each other in a group and understand what that process is like. So now they can then go emulate it for their athletes and their students. And so that's been the goal. Just Breathe, 533 meditation. I was at Columbia Prep here in New York City for 5 years. I'm no longer there. Before practice, they 533. They use that breath meditation still. Tap Talks. I now work with, I partner with Peace Players here out in Brooklyn. Tap Talks is a conversation where we use strategies and exercises to bring self-awareness to the forefront. It is a conversation where we're having facilitated, very purposeful and intentional talks. I was a psych major. And so the goal is how do we, the goal is, back in the day, I had heart-to-hearts with my moms. you know, and God rest her soul, she's no longer here. So I understand how do you have the talk when there's no one that understands what you're saying, when you can't say anything? And that's what a lot of athletes are going through. That's what a lot of coaches are experiencing. Even when we talk about the Syracuse situation, he was also under a lot of pressure. He also had an ego to maintain, and he was maintaining it the best way that he was shown was acceptable. I think when we talk about what also leads to this, yes, the pandemic is a great factor, but I believe the pandemic is just the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. But the professionalization of sports at the young level, AAU, 9U elite, you know, NBA players being scrutinized and villainized for their spiritual beliefs. Right now, they're not allowed to be people. No, just be a ball player. Right? Like, these are the things that we projected in our society.
So I want to.
Go ahead, Vera. I just had a quick question because and it pertains to a little bit what I said in the beginning, and I think that people don't understand that, like what you said, not only just players but coaches, because sometimes I'm telling you, and I'm not talking about Quentin, I'm talking about all coaches. I feel like they don't have any place to go because everybody always expect them to be the leader.
Yeah.
You know, like what you're saying, if the leader, because it takes a lot. Because people feel like this, well, I'm paying, and I'm just going to be honest, this is how they feel. I'm paying you a shitload of money. You shouldn't have these problems. But you do have problems.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, but they know if they go in and say, I need help, and let's just face it, in the Black community, it's tough for us to be vulnerable. Because usually it comes back around and bites us. Just because, because we're being vulnerable and asking for help. You know, when I lost my parents, you know, unfortunately I lost my dad and I lost my mom 5 weeks later. A lot of people don't know that about me. You know what I'm saying? Worst pain I ever been in. So I wish I had help. I didn't. I had to cope with that myself. You know, the only good thing came out of it is whenever I'm in a bad situation, I know I done been to the bottom and I survived. So I survived. But now living in this world that we live in with all the resources, we have to let people know they're there, but America is a funny place. And the reason I say that is because if you come for help, like she said, they want to villainize you. If you ask for help, you're villainized versus, you know, and scrutinized versus saying, like what Simone went through, I hope focuses on that you recognize it's okay if you're not ready to go. But look how half the world is trying to villainize her when she stepped aside and did the right thing, you know, and that's why I agree with you, Coach D. But everybody needs it, and it definitely needs to start with the coaches and should have a safe place. Because how can the players be safe if your coaches ain't got no place safe to go?
Somebody brought up a good point here in the comments too, just on trust, right? Like that's a big part of it too. And so the comment is that if you put a psychologist or, you know, mental health professional on staff, then can the players still trust, right? Because now you're going, but they're on staff, so they talk to the coaches. So what I share that's supposed to, can I trust that what I share is going to be confidential? Yeah, Penny.
Now I'm going to say this, and I ain't naming no names. You know what I did as a GM? And this is what I did. I made psychologists available, but I do believe you can have a sports psychologist. I still would have me a sports psychologist on staff. But what I did in addition to that, because I've had players come to me and say they want help. And a lot of people on my staff would never know who they were. Because you know why? I let them go meet different psychologists and you pick which one. It's a psychologist's duty that you can't tell me just because I'm paying you. You can't tell me what's said about them. You know what I'm saying? And I've had players that I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna give you 3 different options. If none of those work for you, let me know, and we'll keep looking. You know, the league even will help you with it. But I still would have my sports psychologist there because that person could be immediate. But if they wanted to step out and go someplace else, I want to give you the resources for that too. But I do believe that you need a life coach, psychologist, somebody on staff other than the staff.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I really think it's important that, yes, I'm not knocking the sports psychologist. What I'm saying very clearly is that players trust their coaches. And if coaches have the awareness, because we're not like in first aid, right? They say in CPR, right? You know, you're not a heart surgeon, but if you can compress, you're all right. And so the same thing with coaches. If we can be aware, Coach Spoon talked about that, being aware and having that a relationship. And then understanding that mental health and mental wellness is about an unmet need. Coaches need to
Yeah.
be aware of this. How can I look at a player's hygiene or a player's body language and be able to surmise, is this the right question to ask him or her today? Right? Like
Yeah.
coaches really being aware. Again, you talked about it earlier, emotional intelligence, and not just having it for yourself or for the pulse of the game, but for the
Mhm.
everyday, hey, how you doing? Right?
Mm.
Really being able to discern between when I need to give my player a pep talk and when I need to have that conversation that you said you've had with your players where you are recommending a therapist to them. Right? I had a recent situation with a friend. She let me know, I always reach out to this kid. He doesn't respond to me. I told her, I said, keep reaching out. Keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Because the
Yeah.
thing about mental health is no one's going to change your mind but you. It is not physical. It's not a pill. The symptom is something that is a lived experience by no one else other than the person experiencing it. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
nothing, there's nothing, coach, that you're going to say in a game. A coach could say something to a player and bring that fire out. They hitting three,
Yeah.
they're like, yeah. But see, with mental health, that's completely different. Because no
Yeah.
no one is going to bring that player out of that feeling but them and their thoughts. But
Wow.
giving them tools, having that awareness to what's going on around them and be present in the moment. Anxiety, fast forward. Depression, rewind. But allowing your players and yourself to have the tools to be present. Development. Now we're doing this every day. A hygiene system. I brush my teeth every day so my breath don't stink. Well, I 533 every day so my energy don't stink. Having that in our DNA. And now we have what is called a normalization. We all understand about brushing our teeth, but we all use different types of toothpaste. But we
Yeah.
all understand that this hygiene system is something that needs to be exuded, exercised, and practiced all three
Yeah.
daily.
Daily. Yeah. Yeah. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. We've got this is very interesting. Thank you, by the way. Oh my gosh, the comments are off the chain. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Coach
man, how
Lee,
do we
you
even
the
get all of
stuff.
these? In the book Medical Apartheid, it talks about how blacks were assumed to have less pain and were experimented on with no pain medicine. In fact, melanin causes us to be more sensitive to pain. With that, along with that, that physical part of it is now studies that are considering and have been done on the cultural effects of the black community, right? And how much more, and I won't just say the black community, but certainly communities of poverty, people that are in, but by and large, in a lot of, particularly when you're talking about sports, a lot of players that come from the inner city or come from places of poverty or less than, if you will, they're recruited, they go to these big time universities, and now they have all these pressures, and the challenges are significantly different sometimes than their white counterparts. How much cultural thought process has to go into some of that training as well, in your mind, Coach D?
Yeah, I think cultural competency and synchronicity are terms that I keep using, CST. Cultural synchronistic therapy is much like client first therapy. You don't have to
Hmm.
be white to understand humanity, right? But
Yeah.
understanding that whiteness can sometimes make someone feel unsafe in their own humanity and being present.
Mm,
But then understand blackness too is different than,
mm,
and someone who has been through poverty, like myself, is very different than someone like the people that I work with who are black women, but they all come from middle class homes and they both
mhm,
have both their parents. My parents
mhm,
passed away by the time I was 22. And so really understanding certain things that you see in the hood, like it's a very different type of guard that becomes built because now there's a financial pressure and then there's an understanding, oh, I need to maintain it by
mm,
any means necessary, right? We earlier someone used the term survival. And so I think it's really just understanding what survival looks like across different cultures, right? And subcultures. You have socioeconomic status in race, but then you also have immigrants. That experience is very different than someone like myself who's from the projects or someone who's from the South, right? So really just understanding context and being
yeah.
aware and allowing, when we talk mental health, we always allow the person to drive the conversation. That includes
Mhm.
ourselves, not
Mhm,
the external ideas, thoughts, pressures, identities, but putting a system in place every day that allows us to be isolated, forced to meet ourselves, and in some space of gratitude to do so because now we've set the intention to do it. I think the messenger is way more important than, not saying the message isn't important, but I think the message is universal. The message is for everybody. The message is just breathe. How do we create systems of hygiene for coaches and athletes to then express and normalize? So now coaches are not only trained to be able to recognize mental health system, mental health symptoms, mental health signs, right? But we're also able to then be vulnerable with our players in that way. Because again, a lot of mental health issues, when they become diagnosable, means that something happened over a period of time and it was prolonged. Right?
Yeah.
When you talk about death or bereavement or
Yeah.
loss of identity, those issues, they may have been shelved or dismissed, they weren't dealt with. And that happens for all of us. All of us can deal with something or navigate a pressure like death or loss. And we all do, we're human. And if we don't navigate it healthily and really truly process our emotions, it will turn into a mental health issue or concern. We may be functionable, some
Yeah.
people may not notice, but it doesn't mean that something isn't happening. And so again, it's really about coaches being trained, understanding, one, cultural context, two, understanding what hygiene looks like, and three, having tools in their toolkit to be aware and recognize and identify a mental health sign and or symptom. So now when they're practicing these things, you'll have kids and players that'll come to you and say, yo, I don't like being here. Well, what do you mean? Where do you not want to be? I don't want to live anymore. I'm not worth anything. Why do you feel that way? Right? I've literally watched coaches go and encourage kids immediately. Oh, we love you. You just invalidated that athlete's experience. So I think coaches need to be aware of that, right? Good intentions, as they say, is how we pave the road to hell, right? Like your good intentions means nothing. You could have good intentions on the court, but if your best 3-point shooter is sitting out the game with foul trouble and you don't use her in the last 3 seconds because you're scared of her getting fouled out, you just lost the trust of your entire team, right? We understand that on the court. We need to understand that in an emotional scope as well.
Wow, that's powerful. I love it. I love it. Coach T, you educated us today.
I mean, for real, I'm like,
we definitely were
Lordy.
unscripted. I'm like, this is good stuff. I'm
me
like,
too. I had to sit up and watch these girl. I mean,
we didn't know we were going. I thought she was gonna come on and talk about 5 minutes. I'm like, that's nice. That's so good. So the next thing I know, I'm like, tell us more. And the show is time to
Yes.
The show is almost over.
No, let me just say this. I love Coach D. You know, from the time that I met her, I've watched her. I watch what she does. You know, just because you don't talk to someone every day, it doesn't mean you're not paying attention. So when we were discussing mental health, I knew the person I was going to call because she has a totally different perspective, and it's having to do with our athletes as a whole, whether you're white, black, native, it doesn't matter. You know, she's looking at a solution versus just talking about people having a problem. So to listen to her, you're like on the edge of everything that she says because it makes sense the way she explains it. So we definitely have to empower young people like her to be in positions to really get their message out. And I think it starts here with us and the things that we talk about, our truths. And, you know, I just appreciate her taking the time to come out because she's,
thank you.
In my opinion, she's phenomenal. Namaste to you.
Yes.
And, you know, we're going to link up. We're definitely going to link up with some things, you know, that we can help a wide spread of people with in this regard.
So I think one of the most powerful things that Spoon said, we lost her for a little bit, but she's back on. But we'll kind of end on this thought. It's just, it really is about relationships all day, every day, right? Because trust isn't going to come from just because someone says you're my coach, someone says you're my boss, someone says you're my supervisor. Trust comes from developing a relationship and being able to know that it is okay for me to be vulnerable. And I don't think we have that on a large scale in sports. I mean, I do my work outside of this does deal with, like I said, in conflict resolution. And the number one thing, whether I'm going to basketball teams or universities or I'm dealing in corporate America, first thing I do is diagnose trust. Where is it? Where is it lacking? Right. And you find that, unfortunately, especially since we started the show on the Syracuse tip, I think one of the things that Spoon said was so powerful is where, how do you miss it? Right. If you have the relationship,
you don't miss it.
If I know you and we got a great relationship, I can see when you have a bad day. I'm going to say, "Oh, Penny got the stank face today. What happened? What's the matter?" Right? It's like I'm going to know. And I do think, and maybe coaches feel like, well, I got all these players, but that's what your assistants are for. But then that's a whole nother story. So Spoon, you pop back in. I don't know how much of you heard of Coach D, but she took us to church.
I mean, for real.
Coach D, I heard everything you said. I was here. I was listening. And what you said, it resonates with me big time, because I truly believe in something you said. And I just start clapping. Nobody's taught me, but I just start clapping. Is when you said sometimes it's all about just saying, "Hey, how you doing?" Sometimes you got to know how to get to that player. Sometimes know an important date that's in their life. Know about their children and come up to them and say, "Hey, I know today is your child's birthday. What you guys gonna do today?" That matters to them. That's something that's pertinent in their lives. And we coaches have to know those things. And I so agree with you with that. But what I would like to say is this. I'll be in New York in a minute. I got to get with you.
Oh, yeah.
I want to hear more. I want to be fed everything that you were saying, because it matters in what we do with our athletes and understand their truth. And we don't do that very well, I think. I think sometimes we want to throw what we believe is their truth. And we got to hear that truth to get them to where they need to be. It's so important that we deal with that mental side as well. I hear you. I love what you said. And I hope everybody that's listening, that we take what she said and do this in life, period. And everything we do, take what she said and let's drive that thing into life. Because there's a lot that's happening with our people. And we want more entertainment than what is best for their lives. And I think that's fair to the athlete when we don't understand what they're going through.
And Coach D, let them know where they can reach out to you. Let them know your handles and how they can get in touch with you.
Bless. So, ladies, I want to say first and foremost, thank you, because at the end of the day, it would not be possible without. So at Get Fit and Fly, Get Fit Fly Right. That's on all handles. You can also Google that. I definitely want people to go to the YouTube. Search Just Breathe, a visual presentation where you can get a little bit more understanding of what it is that I do. Thank you. And also hit my URL up, www.getfitflyright.com. Everything is FFR, Get Fit Fly Right. And so, I look forward to connecting with people. If you go right now on my Instagram, right in our bio in my link tree, there's a tab that says sign up petition. The goal is 10,000 signatures. We want our voices heard, and we want coaches, at least for now at the high school level, to get some formal mental health awareness training. And the more attention that we can bring to coaches needing training for themselves, we won't have to preach to the choir anymore, right? Because now the choir is singing to the masses. And so that's my goal. My goal is to preach to the choir, like you ladies are coaches and athletes. I want to preach to you so that way you can go sing to the masses and we can have church for everybody. And so get in touch with me at Get Fit Fly Right. Get Fit Fly Right. Google it.
Got it.
Love it.
Put it in the chat. So this definitely, see, that's why we unscripted. This went into an awesome direction, that we didn't even see coming. Coach D, you have been a blessing to a lot of people today. Those of you that are on, we didn't get to those questions, but not that they're not important, but this was extremely important today. So please stay tuned as we continue. We will catch up on the WNBA. They're taking a break right now anyway because of the Olympics. We'll definitely jump into the Olympics. I had to remember to tell everybody, if you are into staying up past 9 o'clock, I'm not. The game is on 12:40 tonight. I think USA, right? I'm at bed at 9 o'clock. USA takes on, we got Australia tonight, 12:40 a.m. If you want to check that out. And hopefully next week we'll be talking about, the goal, right? We'll be talking about us taking away everything. So thanks for tuning in.
Certified.
Yep, that's right. We're certified unscripted. Remember, when it comes to women's hoops, we're not new to this. We're true to this. We are
certified
unscripted.
On time. We got to work on time.
We got a shirt coming to you, honey.
Hey, I love that's unscripted.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Next Tuesday, tell a friend to tell a friend. We're out.
We're outie.
Yo.